Welcome D&D and Warhammer friends to a special character build and class showcase video. This episode, we create Elspeth Von Draken using all 12 levels of the Soul Reaper class from Baldurs Gate Mod Nexus. Massive credits to the mod author Sheniux, not just for creating this class and its varying subclasses, but also for adding unique Reaper animations with a Scythe, and also some unique spells and abilities to go along with it. Also, before I get too deep into it, the attack animations for the Scythe are very spot on, so this is perfect timing for Elspeth. Now, I don't want to ramble on too much about the Warhammer lore like I did in my previous videos, but to sum up who Elspeth Von Draken is she is one of the new legendary lords for Total War Warhammer, and I do believe she is an Elector Countess. But of course, Warhammer friends, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of my information, and also of course let me know if you would make any changes for this character build to better fit her character archetype. Granted that the game itself is limited to what is available, so I will try my best to either roleplay or get as close as mechanically possible to how she plays. Speaking of mechanics, her main study of magic is that of the lore of death, which is pretty much right up the Soul Reaper's alley. Elspeth herself is a morally gray character utilizing questionable magic sources in order to quote-unquote protect her empire. And to give a brief description of the Soul Reaper class overview and also the distinct subclass that we'll be specializing in, which is the Destroyer. Soul Reapers are a kind of special evil spellcaster who uses their power of souls, both mysterious and powerful, with the Destroyer subclass excelling at unleashing destructive spells on a wide range of enemies, and can also unleash continuous spell bombardments on individual enemies. So yes, we're leaning more into a bit of a glass cannon. The fighting style of the Destroyer is simple and direct, stealing souls from enemies and harnessing that power of their grievances to unleash a terrible magic surge, causing direct damage to the enemy. Now, before we get into the main attack spells and also cantrips that is specialized for that subclass, let's get into the first level build. Starting off at first level, it may seem very basic that I'm choosing human, but some of my returning viewers know that I am using a variant human mod, which there is a plethora of different passives for us to choose and build various characters from. Now, my first choice here is going to be Resilient Intelligence, increase our intelligence by 1 and gain proficiency in intelligence saving throws. Now, this may seem very basic as well, but when I get to the ability output modifier, that +1 is going to make a big difference in the early game. The second one I would personally pick up would be Spell Sniper. The number we need to roll a critical hit while attacking with a spell is reduced by 1, and the key thing here is this effect can stack, so some of our other leveling choices or some of our equipment choices will stack up on top of it, meaning it will be easier for us to land those massive damaging strikes in combat. And also, speaking of combat too, Fast Hands being able to have an additional bonus action, which I'm also using a mod to convert 2 bonus actions into an action, or vice versa, 1 action into 2 bonus actions, really just provides a different kind of action economy for you to versatilize yourself in combat. And right off the bat at first level, we do have the option of summoning different Scythes as a Soul Reaper. There are 3 different Scythes which I will go over later in the video, each with their own purposes and also different strategies of how to really optimize them in combat too. I'm also using a modified list of backgrounds which really expands upon the use of different types of roleplay builds. But with Inquisitor, we gain useful skills of investigation and religion. It can be questioned to decide to pick different ones for Elspeth, but seeing her as a very curious person and delving into different types of dark secrets, I figured this would be right up her alley. As for the ability output modifier, because we decided to give a +1 to intelligence, I decided to dump the max amount of points and also assign a +2 bonus to intelligence, which puts us up to a very solid +4. Eventually, when we do gain increase to ability points as we level up, we will reach the max amount of 20 overall +5 earlier on in our build. Constitution and Dexterity will leave at respectable 14, so overall +2 for each. Wisdom will get a decent +1, Charisma we're leaving alone, and Strength we're taking points away from. Dex is also helped with a bonus to +1 as well. As for the rest of our skill proficiencies, we gain +6 to Arcana, +6 to Investigation, +6 to Religion, and respectable +2s to Intimidation and Deception. And also, bonus as well, let me know if you agree with my styling of Elspeth. I do know that she is not undead or immortal necessarily, but she is a very long-lived person due to her mastering the magic of death and basically extending her life too. This is also the closest thing that I could see Elspeth having in terms of a hairstyle. I believe this hairstyle is kind of similar to Mixer's version of Elspeth, the modded version of course before the official release is given to us. At second level, we have a choice selection of different spells and passives to choose from. Now, when it comes to my first picks, I'm going to choose spells and passives that complement each other and also rely on using weapon damage with her iconic Scythe. So for the spell choice, I'm going to pick up Soul Surge, Psychic Tempest, weapon damage of 1d10 Psychic. Now, Soulmourn that's described in here, you basically earn it by killing off enemies, if I remember correctly from the mod description. Consume all Soulmourn, unleash a Psychic Shockwave in a fan-shaped area ahead, dealing 1 to 10 psychic damage based on weapon damage and increased by the bonus of Intelligence modifier. So these two things, weapon damage and Intelligence modifier, those are what I'm really going to focus on as a key point here. Intelligence modifier being a very strong +4 and soon to be +5 after we level up a little bit more. Spiritual Oscillation, melee weapon attack will make the enemy vulnerable to psychic and slashing damage, which basically is what our Scythe is going to be, lasting for 2 rounds. Like I said, both of these will complement each other hand in hand and also provide us little buffs in damage output. At level 3, we gain access to different subclasses, and specifically for Elspeth's build, I'm going to pick up Destroyer. With the subclass features we gain here, Pain of War, unique soul ability of the Destroyer, which allows them to directly gain 10 Soulmourn when entering battle. Now, at the entering battle stage, gaining 10 Soulmourn right off the bat is really going to help us with our different spells, passives, and abilities later on. The specific actions we gain here, Soul Shock, 1 to 10 psychic damage, Soul Reaping spell, gain 15 Soulmourn, so at the start of battle 10, plus another 15 if we use this action, puts us at a very strong 25. Cause the target's soul to shudder and dealing 1 to 10 psychic damage. If the target is currently frightened, you will gain additional 10 Soulmourn, so stacks upon stacks of souls to use in battle. And then one of the other actions we gain here is Soul Surge, Starlit Oblivion, 1d8 psychic damage, so a little bit less than this. However, this unique ability here consumes all Soulmourn to cast a massive psychic explosion, dealing 1 to 8 psychic damage to all enemies within range based on weapon damage. So this is going to be your area of effects spell / action, and it's got a pretty strong, decent range too. At level 4, the feat of course I'm going to pick up here is Ability Improvement, maxing out our Intelligence to 20, and one of the other actions we gain here is Soul Surge Infernal Harvest, which is our Scythe weapon damage, 2d10 psychic damage, consume all Soulmourn. Wield the sickle to attack up to 3 enemies around you, dealing 2 to 20 psychic damage based on your specific scythe damage, which is additionally boosted by the shield value of Martyr's Sacrifice, which hopefully we can pick up later down the line too. And before we get into more of the build, I will admit I do like my rendition and version of Elspeth. Let me know in the comments if you like this outfit design. Like I said, this is just me doing my best using dyes, different equipment to really get as close as possible to her actual character model. I'm not entirely sure what her hairstyle is officially in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, but for diehard fans, please do let me know all the different bits of lore info, and also if you have any critiques too on my level up or character appearance choices, do please give me your honest opinion. I do appreciate the feedback, and overall it does make me a better creator hearing from all of you. At level 5, we gain a choice of passives, and also we gain a specific action here, with the action being Soul Surge, Eternal Nightfall, weapon damage 2d8 psychic, consume all Soulmourn, descend upon any enemy to reap their life, dealing 2 to 16 potential psychic damage based on weapon damage. After hitting the enemy with Eternal Nightfall, you may cast it again within this turn, and it is considered to have a bonus of 50 Soulmourn. With the passive as well, Valley of the Empty Heart, ironically, when casting any spell while having less than 55 Soulmourn, so about the same level or amount of Soulmourn as the action there, enemies around you suffer 1 to 4 psychic damage and are drained 2 Soulmourn to you. Now, like the description said, it does seem a little bit situational, but at the same time, if you are running low on your Soulmourn, at least you can deal at some amount, even if it's just a small amount of damage. This effect does not cause enemies to enter a state of incomplete soul, and it is per turn. At level 6, the passive I would personally pick up here would be Omen of Destruction. After Soul Shock causes a critical hit, the next Soul Surge will also guarantee to deal a critical hit. Now the thing is, I picked this over Echo of Energy, which, while they do seem pretty similar, when a Soul Surge deals a critical hit, the damage inflicted is increased from 150% to 200% based on the amplification of Soulmourn. Now, this does, like it says, rely on Soulmourn, so if you're running pretty low, at least with Omen of Destruction, you can still get that consistent critical damage. But to each their own. Let me know in the comments if you would rather pick up the other one too. At level 7, we do gain a very all-powerful action of Soul Surge, Final Judgment, consume all Soulmourn, summon the Eye to glimpse into the mortal realm, granting 15% chance for enemies to perish instantly from its overwhelming might. Wow, that is not just an area of effect spell, but pretty much a snap your finger and die method. Those who survive the cataclysmic event will be afflicted with Frighten for 1 turn, so wow, okay. Basically instant death, but if you do manage to survive, you'll be frightened and won't be able to take any actions. It does require a very steep 40 points of Soulmourn to cast, higher consumption of Soulmourn, greater the chance of instant death, psychic amplification. I love how there's like just question marks there too. You could almost say that action is like that one spell from the Lore of Death, Purple Sun of Xerius, if you really wanted to go that far. At level 8, the passive I would personally pick up here would be Soul Gathering Lantern. Increase the Soulmourn generated by all Soul Reaping spells by 30%, and while it may be a mere 30%, it at least does help you stack up over time, which is pretty much the whole meta of this build. The feat I would personally pick up here as well is Meta Magic Adept, and yes, this is a modded feat, basically taking this feat from the sorcery tree. And the meta magic that I would pick up here would be Subtle Spell and Twin Spell, both only costing 1 sorcery point. You do gain 2 sorcery points, so do use them wisely. Subtle Spell, basically use it in a pinch whenever you're going up against an enemy caster who silenced you. And Twin Spell basically turns your single target spell into a little crowd control spell by adding an additional targeted creature. At level 9, we gain a new group of different spells and passives to choose from. Personally for me, I would pick up Dark Doctrine, consume a bonus point action, to immediately gain 50 Soul Mourn. Now, 50 Soul Mourn stacked on top of the additional Soul Mourn that you get at the start of battle, plus also the 30% that we picked up earlier. That's going to be a massive boon for us. Passives here, I would pick up Spirit of Explosion, gain 12 Soul Mourn after being attacked, and the enemy that attacked you will be frightened. If the enemy is hit again by Soul Tide while still under the effects of Frighten for 1 turn. Now, this is really strong here too, and also this is really good for a retaliatory, not necessarily damage, but also you gain something out of getting hit and damaged by the enemy. Psychic Burst is also pretty useful here too. Consume a bonus action point, unleash a powerful burst of soul energy towards an enemy, dealing 1 to 10 psychic damage and gaining 8 soul mourn. So you do have more of a damage output with this one, but you don't gain as much soul mourn with this. But you do also gain an extra action point that is only valid for this turn. And yeah, the extra action point is useful, but the fact that it's only useful for that turn means that I'm going to lean more towards the stacked bonus amount of Soul Mourn here. But to each their own. You could also pick up Desecrate Inscription, consume a bonus point to recover all action points. That's, well, it's useful, but also it does seem a little bit redundant with our choice too of picking up Fast Hands at our starting level as well. Some of the other passives we gain here: Soul Shatter's Lament. Soul Surge deals additional psychic damage equal to 6% of the enemy's maximum HP if they are afflicted with Frighten. If the enemy is hit again by Soul Tide, while still under the effects of Frighten, they will suffer psychic damage equal to 12% of their max HP. Ultimate Suppression. Unleash Soul Surge, increasing bonus damage of Soul Surge by 18% for 2 turns. Effect can stack. Effect reduces the bonus of Eternal Nightfall by 50%. I'm still going to pick up Explosion just because it's kind of like a nice little reward for us, or a little incentive that even if we take damage, we can still gain something out of it. Now, admittedly, at level 10, I was a little tossed up with which to choose from these groups of passives. Wrath of the Eye, very tempting here. Casting Soul Surge Starlit Oblivion has a 30% chance of not consuming Soul Mourn for the next cast of Soul Surge Starlight Oblivion. Now, this was really tempting, but also it is only a 30% chance, so in my personal opinion, not really worth it for this specific build. But by all means too, if you have a different build in mind, do pick this up. I'm not saying it's a bad passive or anything, just Legacy of Seraphine is what I decided to go for. Soul Surge Infernal Harvest reduces the threshold of critical by 5. By 5 is really good here too, and if you do land that critical hit, you will gain an opportunity to cast Soul Surge Psychic Tempest, so dishing out more weapon damage and psychic damage with our intelligence modifier as well. Plus also it will stack with our Spell Sniper, reducing it by a total of 6. Level 11, there wasn't any features present, but at level 12, we do gain the subclass feature of Deep Soul Prison. Control over souls has been greatly improved, and you can now imprison up to 200 Soul Mourn. For the feat, you can really go any way here on your choice. Savage Attacker is really good for outright damage with your Scythe melee weapon, but I decided to flavor things up a little bit by picking up Telekinetic. Basically, just add a little bit more versatility to Elspeth's spells, increase our chosen ability score by 1, intelligence, and even though we can't get above 20, we do at least gain an invisible mage hand without verbal or semantic components, and we can push and pull a creature telekinetically using our chosen ability score as a spell DC. Now, that's the thing too, is like I was saying before, I just want to make this as close as possible to Elspeth as well, and not just focusing on outright damage. But if you want to go with outright damage, Slasher is really good with your Scythe weapon, and like I said before, Savage Attacker. But let me know in the comments if you think Telekinetic would be a good final choice, or resounding final choice, to really flesh out Elspeth's character build. Now for the equipment choices here, I will admit I am utilizing both base game and also modded equipment. but I decided to pick them both for appearance-wise and also for some of the useful effects that they give. Now, I will also be going over the specific sites that you can summon. Now, keep in mind, I did say summon, hence the reason why it's not shown here. But once we go through all of the equipment, then I'll go over to the site summon menu, and then we'll talk about all three of them and which ones that you would personally pick in terms of situational differences too. But starting with the equipment, Menacing Circlet, Browbeaten, Wearer has a +1 bonus to spell save DC while threatened. Synergetic movements. When you inflict a condition, gain Arcane Synergy for 2 rounds. As a reminder, Arcane Synergy is when weapon attacks deal additional damage equal to the affected entity's spellcasting ability modifier, which is our intelligence. Cloak of the Weave, Arcane Enchantment, +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. Absorb elements, absorb elemental damage once per short rest. Take half damage from the next elemental attack targeting you and deal an additional 1d6 of that elemental type on your next attack. So this is kind of a very nice retaliatory not passive, but essentially ability that we have to essentially just damage back and also reduce the amount of incoming damage to ourselves too. Very anti-enemy caster-esque. I'm also using the Selûnite robe as our main armor piece, or robe piece I should say. Weave Eater, whenever the wearer succeeds a saving throw against a spell, they regain 1 to 6 hit points, so basically a little reward for dodging out of damage. We also gain the spell Moon Mode. Illuminate the area around you with wisps of a moonish light that make movement difficult for enemies and bolster your allies' damage for a whole 10 turns, and it has a decent area of effect range too. We also gain advantage on Constitution saving throw checks, and it gives us a nice armored class of +2 as well. For the glove choices, Astral Plate gloves is what I'm personally using. Cancerous Wounds, whenever you score a critical hit, deal an additional 1 to 6 force damage, so just stacking damage upon damage with these. Underdog's Bravery, the wearer gains advantage on melee attack rolls while surrounded by 2 or more foes, so if you find yourself in a crowd control situation, whenever you do make attacks with your Scythe weapon, you can dish out yet again just a little bit more extra damage, plus we gain a +1 on strength saving throws. Now, for the alternative, you could use the vanilla Arcane Gloves, +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. Weave Eater, where the wearer succeeds a saving throw against a spell, regain 1 to 6 hit points, pretty much stacking it up with the Selûnite robe, and also we gain the Adroit Caster. Cantrips targeting foes and allies can target an additional creature. The same target can be chosen twice. It's really up to you though, but I'm using, of course, the modded Astral Plate gloves, just because the extra damage is very hard to pass up. Boots of Arcane Bolstering is my choice here. Rapid Caster, each time they dash, the wearer gains Arcane Charge for 2 turns. It is very situational though, so you do have to literally cast and blast or run and gun essentially. While threatened, affected entity has a +2 bonus to damage with spells. One of the alternatives here is Brisquin Boots, critical swiftness. After scoring a critical hit or killing a hostile creature, movement speed is restored to maximum. Again, situational, so you either gotta land that critical hit or even kill one of the minion enemies or low tier enemies to restore movement speed. But again, choice is up to you. As for the ring and necklace choices, well, these are going to complement each other. Well, at least one of the rings and necklaces are. But for this ring, Ring of Exalted Marrow, I decided to pick this up for roleplay purposes, and also it's definitely something that Elspeth would utilize to her advantage too. Exhort the Risen, subjugate the undead with your commands. I could definitely see Elspeth having, at the time of her life, basically just having total advantage and complete control over Vlad, Isabella, any vampire count enemies, and utilizing their own lore of death against them. Ghoulish Touch, again, Elspeth is someone that uses very questionable magics to fulfill her goals and to quote-unquote protect the Empire, dealing 2 to 12 necrotic damage, lash out with deadly claws, and possibly paralyze your target for 2 turns. Now for the complementing ring and necklace here. The necklace, being pre-apt of wound closure, when down, automatically stabilize at the start of the turn, but the secondary effect here, potent healing, whenever you are healed, you restore the maximum amount of possible hit points, which pairs well with the Ring of Regeneration. At the beginning of your turn, ring activates and heals you 1 to 4 hit points, but paired with this means that we restore ourselves 4 hit points every turn. Small amount, but again, if you took, let's say, a lot of damage in one turn, then over time you can regenerate back to full. And also, this will in a way complement the Selûnite robe to regain 6 hit points after saving a throw against a spell too. So lots of regeneration potential here too, especially with the fact that our AC isn't really as high, being a glass cannon Reaper caster. Last but definitely not least is our ability to summon 3 different types of scythes. Now, the fact that there's 3 different types means they are situational, but also can be paired right with the specific build. I do want to go over all 3 of them, and I'll pick the one that I want using for Elspeth, but really, you can switch and pick and choose whichever one you feel is right for her. Starting with St. Elmo's Fire, we gain Eternal Flame of Inscription. When attacked, there is a 28% chance to gain 3 Soulmourn. Blade of Worldly Piercing. Your attack against an enemy with incomplete soul gains a bonus of 1d20 plus your intelligence modifier to the attack roll. While in Soul Barrier, your attack deals additional 1 to 6 psychic damage, which is also boosted by your intelligence modifier. Catastrophe Carnival Seal. When not in Soul Barrier, if attacked, there is a 12% chance to randomly trigger one of the effects of Soul Barrier for 2 turns. This effect does not consume Soulmourn, but still consumes Soulmourn when counter-attacking, and does not prevent you from casting other Soul Barriers. Soul Sea Vigilance. If you are in Soul Barrier and receive a deadly strike, you will not die until you are freed from the Soul Barrier. This effect can only take effect once per long rest. We also gain Soul Seizing Slash. With Seraphine Cruel Fate Reaper, we gain Exquisite Engraved Rune, reduce the threshold of spell critical by 2, and grant a bonus of 1d10 to the attack roll itself. Formless Eye of Terror. Your spell has a 25% chance to inflict panic on enemies for 1 turn, and this chance increases by 1% per level up to a maximum of 37%. Very whopping right there. Swift Extraction Charm. Killing an enemy who's not in status of incomplete soul will grant you 8 Soulmourn. Awakening to Cruel Fate. After casting a Soul Surge, there is a 35% chance that you can cast another Soul Surge with a bonus action point in the same turn. It's a power equivalent to receiving a bonus of 35 Soulmourn, and we gain Vitality Siphon as a class action. And with the final Scythe, Thanatos Embrace the End. Twisted Engraved Seal. When dealing any damage, it comes with 1 to 6 psychic damage on top. Edge of Crazy Desire. Casting spells has a 15% chance to gain 3 Soulmourn, with the chance increasing by 1% per level up to a max of 27%. Dark Embrace Engraving. Enemies hurt by your soul reaping spells for the first have a 12% chance of being affected by a random soul surge for 1 turn. This effect does not consume Soulmourn and cannot stack Wicked Turbulence for you. Death's Gift. After the end of Soul Surge, the automatically increased Wicked Turbulence on you can retain half its stacks and added to the next Soul Surge. Plus we gain Apocalyptic Teleport. As I've said before, it can be very situational, and it's your personal preference on which one you would choose for their different effects and also for appearance sake. But for me, roleplay wise, I am going to pick up the one that is essentially Seraphine Cruel Fate Reaper, because I do like the idea of reducing spell critical attacks, even if it's just by 2, and granting a bonus overall damage to the attack roll is really useful as well. Plus also, the look of the Scythe really does lean into what Elspeth's side looks like in the new upcoming Thrones of Decay. Alright friends, that has been my character build for Elspeth Von Draken, as well as a modded character showcase of the Soul Reaper, specifically the Destroyer subclass. Let me know in the comments if you have liked what you have seen with the different types of branches that you can go with the Soul Reaper, and also I do plan on covering the 2 other subclasses as well. Please do take a chance to try it out for yourselves, experiment with your own different types of builds, and as always, let me know if you agree or disagree with my choice in character leveling with Elspeth in this video. If you have difference of opinions on which you would choose, please do let me know in the comments. I genuinely love hearing about everyone's different types of builds, and also things that you would improve from what I've showcased as well. And also, regardless if you're a new or a returning viewer, thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video, and I hope you guys enjoy this quick combat showcase as well. Until then, friends, I'll save you all a seat for the next adventure. Take care and farewell.